Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Bernie Wolfsdorf. It's a great pleasure to be speaking with you all today. I see we have a fair number of people logged in so far. So welcome. We're going to give people a minute or two to join. Today's presentation put on by WR Immigration. I'm the W, Bernie Wolfsdorf. It's a great pleasure to speak with you all today. Joining me is my partner, Joey Barnett. Say hi, Joey.
Hello there. Good evening, everybody.
Hi, welcome, and thank you, Joey. Joey and I are in Los Angeles, California, and we also have two other special guests today. We have Mr. Stuart Ferguson from American Dream. Stuart, unmute yourself. Say hello to everybody.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Good morning. Thanks very much, Bernard. Really looking forward to the session with yourself, Joey, and Bruce. So
great.
I think we've got a lot to cover.
Thank you, Stuart. Really pleased to have you join us today. And last but not least is Dr. Bruce Stewart. I'm going to get confused between the Stewarts. We have two Stewarts. We have Stuart Ferguson and we have Dr. Bruce Stewart. So we'll go with Bruce today. Bruce, please unmute yourself. Say hello to everybody. And Bruce, you are in Charlotte, North Carolina, correct?
Charlotte, North Carolina. Thanks, Bernie, and good afternoon to everybody. Pleased to be here.
Stuart, you're in Umhlanga right now? Umhlanga, South Africa?
At the moment I'm in Umhlanga Rocks. Can't wait for you to come out in the next 2 weeks so I can take you into some of the surf. But looking forward to your trip out.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Stuart. Yeah, I have to tell you, everyone, I'm going to be in Umhlanga. I arrive on the 13th of September. I am really excited about it. It's not exactly my old stomping ground. I'm originally from Durban, DHS boy. So, can't wait to get back. I guess I can call it home. On our audience today, this presentation today is primarily focused towards South Africa and South Africa EB-5. I did send the invite out to my general EB-5 list, so we probably have quite a few people who are interested in EB-5 generally. This presentation will be relevant to you because we're going to discuss the new EB-5 law. We're going to discuss immigration strategies. Stuart Ferguson is, as I say, based in South Africa. He's the boots on the ground, and he has been very active in the EB-5 arena. I would go so far as to say extremely successful in the EB-5 arena in terms of presenting EB-5 projects and helping people navigate the very complicated EB-5 visa application. Bruce Stewart, based in Charlotte, North Carolina, provides a very interesting and unique service. A lot of people, when they arrive in the U.S., they don't know where to start on even basic things, opening bank accounts, driver's license, but even better than that, what Bruce works on is pre-immigration planning and post-immigration planning. But I will give him an opportunity to explain that himself. So without further ado, I think we have a critical mass at this point. Let's get started. So a little bit of information about our firm. WR Immigration is now 36 years old. We do have a very high-tech, innovative approach to immigration law. We have a very advanced Salesforce-based, cloud-based immigration management system that really makes the whole process so much smoother. We provide what we call a high-touch approach. We are available to you. We guide you through the process. It's a lengthy process. It's one of the reasons I wanted to bring in Stuart Ferguson and Bruce, because they are also absolutely critical to the process of immigrating. We handle the legal side, but there are many other sides besides the pure legal work, and that's why I've invited our two special guests to join us today and guide us through the process. So let's keep going. All the lovely awards we have. I do like bragging a little bit, if you don't mind, but there were only 2 lawyers who were listed as preeminent in California. They added me. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but I guess maybe not. So I am honored to be one of the so-called preeminent. Actually, it's not preeminent. That's very South African. Here, they just call it eminent practitioner. I still add a lot of South African words. One of the things you have to learn when you come to America is they change the words over. A few of them change slightly. Bruce, don't correct me. I'm sure I'm wrong on that one. He is the master with attention to detail and language. So I don't know if I got that one wrong. Who's Who Legal, we had, why does it say four lawyers listed in the global elite? James, you have to fix this. We had something like 14 lawyers listed in Who's Who Legal this year. Our firm presently has 9 offices throughout the United States. We have 9 offices, and we have almost 200 staff. So we've grown. U.S. News and World Report has put us in Tier 1. So, but all these badges, I don't know how much these badges really mean. So here's the basic contact information for all of us. That's me. I do tell everybody it's a bit of a fake picture because I'm a little bit older now, but I suppose it's okay to use a picture from a couple of years ago. So that's me, Bernie Wolfsdorf. My email is my name, Bernard at, wait, we've got a South African audience. In South Africa, it's Barnett, but here in America, they call it Bernard. So we have to change our name a little bit. So Bernard at Wolfsdorf.com, Joey Barnett, same address, Stuart at AmericanDream-EB5.com, and Bruce Stewart, who is what I call consultant. His company's called Pathway. He's available at that contact information. So we like to brag that we do have over 25 years of experience. Actually, I filed my first case in 1993. 1993, I got it approved in 24 hours, but, those kind of stories are irrelevant because you're not going to get a 24-hour approval anymore. So, Stuart, if you can unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about American Dream. I know that you have been the most successful person with EB-5 in South Africa. I say this is your turf, as it were. I know you've developed a strong following. So tell us a little bit about American Dream and particularly your relationship with Kaleo Capital. And I know you've been working with Pam Golding for some time as well.
Yeah, thanks very much, Bernard. I mean, just a bit of background. I've been involved in EB-5 since 2010. I was aligned to a regional center, and we were one of the first regional centers that went through the rigmarole of getting approved. So, yeah, a bit of a war veteran, if I can use those words in respect of EB-5. We've all collectively gone through, these short extensions and then no extension and then collapse and then reinstatement. So, yeah, I mean, I think that we've got a great footprint. I think it's prudent to mention that we are also members of IIUSA, as well as the Immigration Investment Council based out of Geneva. And then obviously we work alongside a family office known as Kaleo, very, very critical for EB-5 investors. And they really are our custodians in terms of compliance and regulatory aspects on the ground here in South Africa. But more importantly is they collectively with us will unpack what are the tax implications going to be for a potential investor that's looking to relocate to the US? And what will the implications be in respect of certain investments that they may have, and how best to maybe reparcel them before they get into the US so that they are US friendly. More so, what's becoming more prominent in terms of that relationship at the moment, and that's really with this increase from 500 going up to 800, is that we do have the ability to look at some alternative financing in terms of how people could possibly find the funds to invest at 800. Today the rand's at 1730, so it's a chunk of money for South Africans.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah,
that's really helpful. Sorry, thank you, Stuart. Please continue.
Yep, that, and then obviously, Pam Golding. We work exceptionally closely with Chris Immelman and Andrew from Pam Golding. It's great to have their personal endorsement. We periodically travel together across the United States where we identify projects that we think are going to resonate with South African investors. So, project selection for South African investors is very, very crucial. So we like to work on projects that are going to be easily, resonate well with South African investors. So, yeah, that's us in a nutshell. We've got a dedicated team that operate out of our offices up in Johannesburg.
Amazing. Stuart, I think you touched on some very important stuff. That issue of tax planning, very important for high net worth investors to consider pre-immigration tax planning. So I'm glad that you tied into that issue. As I say, we stay in our lane, the visa side of this. As immigration lawyers, that's our job, is to process the visa. But pre-immigration tax planning, post-immigration tax planning, all very, very important aspects. And of course, project selection, possibly the most important aspect since it's based. I'm also interested to hear a little bit more about your financing options. We're going to get into some of that. Joey, I'm going to ask you some questions about whether or not that's going to be permissible and how that's permissible. I know we've done that. So it's good to hear that you are tied into that particular aspect. We're not going to go deep into those issues today. Today we're going to talk about the new EB-5 law. We're going to talk about what's involved, what we anticipate, and some of the new stuff in the new EB-5 law. Bruce, if you can, Dr. Stewart, Bruce, if you can unmute yourself, tell us a little bit about your services. And sorry, I don't have a particular slide for you today, but
okay.
Please roll off. Take it.
Yeah,
take
thanks,
it away.
Bernie.
Yeah,
we did this move 21 years ago from South Africa. And once we arrived here, we realized that getting the visa was, in fact, the easy part. Making a life in the United States tends to be a whole lot more difficult. You arrive here with zero credit score. You have no reputation. You're treated as a tourist. You pay cash for everything. You pay huge deposits on renting because you've got no credit score. And the credit score essentially is a measure of your character, your responsibility, and your ethics and morality. And if you've got no credit score, nobody will give you the price of a cup of coffee on a loan. So no credit cards. You battle to get your kids into schools if you don't get them on the placement list years in advance. So there were lots of things that we should have done the moment we started the visa process. And that's essentially where our focus is right now, getting bank accounts open, getting properties purchased, talking to you about schools, talking to you about how finance works for auto finance, insurance, health insurance, medical insurance. These are the aspects that should be started. We see horror stories every day of people who arrive here on EB-5s and suddenly find that they can't buy a house and they can't get their kids into schools. And they say, well, why are we only finding out about this now?
This is great stuff, Bruce. I really appreciate it. I spoke to your wife, Di, yesterday because they were looking for a health insurance agent here in California. And fortunately, I was able to refer the one that we work with to help somebody in somewhat of a desperate situation. Suddenly finding that, if you've got serious medical issues and you don't have health insurance, gosh, that's a big one. So, you're helping people in very unique ways. And I think that's very important. So thank you, everybody. That explains who this team is. You are going to hear mainly Joey and Bernie today because we're going to be focusing on this new law. Folks, the chat function is open. We're going to answer all of your questions. Let's use the chat function if you have questions. I am going to try and finish this in an hour because, well, gosh, what you can do within an hour is better than what you can do within 2 hours. So let's start off with this law, the current status of EB-5. So as Stuart Ferguson mentioned to us, he's been involved in this area for a long, long time. We had a little bit of what I'm going to call a hiccup because the program actually lapsed for almost a year, creating quite a bit of frustration to everybody in the industry, particularly to our pending clients, because we made an estimate. I made an estimate. I said to people, look, you know, this thing's going to take you 2.5 years, but we had a lapse of almost a year. So that's added some time to the processing and caused quite a lot of frustration for people, to put it directly. And pardon me, and we all acknowledge that. So, but we do have this new law now, which is the Reform and Integrity Act. There's a lot of really good, pardon me, investor protection provisions, which we're very, very happy about. This is a 5-year program, but one of the really nice things about this program is we now have a grandfather clause. So if the American government decides to change its mind and not renew the program, or turns anti-immigrant or something like that, then we still don't need to worry, because with the grandfather clause, your case can continue to be processed. So, or since we are talking to a South African audience, the correct word is processed. But here in America, it's processed. You have to change your O to an A. I'll stop being silly in my next life, but in this life, I'll continue to be a little bit silly, if you don't mind. It'll get us through some of the more boring parts of this presentation. So the good news, EB-5 regional center programs are filing. Business is open. The government had this little last-minute hiccup where they had to issue a receipt for the regional centers. They finally came in literally last week. Is that correct, Joey? Unmute yourself. So we all in ready, and the team is working. I think they're pretty much working overtime already, getting ready, filing cases. Have we filed our first one under the new law yet, Joey, or is it going out in the next few days? How are we doing on production?
My first one's going out tomorrow. We just got the receipt notice for the regional center application, and we include that with the investor's application, that receipt notice, and we're good to go.
Excellent. I'm really excited. I know our team is working overtime on source of funds, getting everything ready and filing adjustments. I have 2 partners, Joey Barnett and Vivian Zhu, who are EB-5. We have a few different lawyers involved in the program, but these are the main partners, very active. Our team, it's been a little bit slow for the last year, and now, you know, we up and running. So that's the exciting news. That the regional center program is back, open, running, and as we say in the old country, we're off to the races. So that's the good news. Now,
Bernard, I just wanted to mention, you know, also we're seeing a lot of movement taking place at the consulate at the moment. So we've been very, very fortunate. We've had almost 10 families finally get through the consulate and get issued their immigrant visas. So, you know, that's great news, because it's, you know, at one point, the consulate was totally non-functional, and they seem to have played a bit of catch up. And we're hoping that there are going to be some more appointments lined up for those that have been anxiously waiting for, you know, to get through that last hurdle.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for raising that. I really appreciate that, Stuart, because, you know, and honestly, we have a different department that's been doing that. And I don't want to do any one-upmanship here, but because we've had lots of Chinese cases and which we filed that were stuck for many years. And finally, we have literally got dozens and dozens and dozens of appointments. They literally came in. I can talk about some litigation Joey's doing on those Chinese cases, but it's not our topic today. But Joey, hats off to what you've done, because honestly, it's your efforts that have pushed the Chinese cases forward at that level. But yeah, we've had a lot of delay. Those are mainly COVID delays, which have kind of gummied up the system, and in addition to the lapse, but the train is now moving, folks. I know people have been frustrated. Honestly, we've been frustrated, but the good news is the train has left the station. It's moving. Interviews are getting scheduled. Thank you for reminding me about that important function. We're prepping people. Cases are being filed, and the program is moving really top-notch, or as we say in South Africa, really lekker, man. So, you know, it's really quite exciting that this program is working so well, finally, after the hiccup period. So every year, what is EB-5? A little bit of the basics for people who are not familiar with this. Each year, it's 10,000 EB-5 visas are available to investors who invest in a new commercial enterprise. Very important. You have to create at least 10 jobs. But why I keep talking about this regional center program is that you are allowed to create indirect jobs. Honestly, having 10 full-time employees in the US, I have close to 200. Gosh, it involves millions and millions in wages. And for that reason, 95% of investors have gone for the regional center program. I strongly recommend the regional center program. I do not like the direct EB-5 program, because it's just too much commitment to have 10 full-time workers and keep the wages going. So we're talking today about the regional center program, which works so much better. This will allow you and your entire family, including your unmarried children. Remember, if they're 20, they're not allowed to get married, because unless they marry an American, they can get a green card. But unmarried, under 21 years of age, they're able to live, work in the United States, study in the US. Look, I immigrated to America. I'm very biased, but I do think America has the best opportunities. I know a lot of South Africans, we like to go to the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Israel, Portugal. Portugal's the big one right now. But Portugal, you know, it's a lovely place. I love Portugal. Lovely place to go on vacation, maybe even to retire. But if you want to do business, you know, I'm sorry, I'm totally biased. America is the place. This is the place for education. This is the place for business opportunities. This is the place for the best quality of life, in my opinion. But again, I'm totally biased, and there are other options. But if you look at how well most South Africans have done in America, you know, come on, it's kind of obvious. Seriously, the options are much bigger, the opportunities are much better, and at least here in California, we have wonderful weather. Where Bruce is on the East Coast, it's bloody cold in winter, but you know, not everybody can have it perfect.
Bernie, Bernie, I want to ask another question.
Yeah, sure, please. Yeah.
You know, we've seen really very, very slow processing times in terms of adjudications.
Yeah.
Are we going to reach the 10,000 visas issued this year?
So, you know, here's the funny thing, hey? The funny thing, and I don't really want to get in the weeds on this because we actually have some litigation against the U.S. government on this. This year, we didn't get a 10,000 allocation. We got an allocation of 19,880 visas. Last year, the U.S. government wasted 15,567 visas. How do I know these numbers? Because we're working like crazy. So what happened is, because the system wasn't working well, they effectively flushed the visas away, which was just horrifying. And they were standing to do that again this year, waste over 15,000 more visas. And we got this double allocation for technical reasons. I don't want to get into it, but it was very frustrating to me. And now, only at the last minute, Joey, when did we file that lawsuit? When was it filed? About August?
A month ago.
A month ago. We filed that lawsuit. Honestly, we served the government, and within a week or two of serving, I started getting notices from the National Visa Center and appointments like crazy. But the bottom line is, we don't think that they can, at this last minute, issue all of the visas, which is what our lawsuit is about. So, look, a lot of people will, for South Africans, it's not really a problem. To be honest with you, visa availability is not a big problem for South Africans. We've never had a waiting line in terms of a quota. The visa's always been current. It's just been processing delays. The delay of the adjudication at the IPO has been terrible. They're promising us, that's the division that actually adjudicates these cases. They promise us that they're going to get better. Do I believe them? I want to believe them. I am hopeful they will have to improve, but honestly, the processing times have been too slow and very frustrating for all of our clients. But we do expect them. But what we're going to talk about today is one of the new options that's available. I mean, I have to still tell somebody, if you're going to wait in South Africa for a green card, going through the regular system, you do have to anticipate a minimum of 2 to 3 years before you will be able to enter the US. That's what I will tell somebody today who's filing. But we're going to talk about concurrent filing today, and in which case the concurrent filing under certain circumstances means that you'll be able to come to the United States much sooner than have to wait through the consular processing. But let's go through some basics first. So here's the big one. The capital requirements are currently, it used to be 500,000. At the moment, the minimum investment amount is 800,000, no discount. 800,000. And that is only if you have a project in a rural area, a high unemployment area, or infrastructure. Infrastructure is very small. It's only 2%, so I don't want to talk a lot about those. But we will talk about rural, we will talk about high unemployment areas, and that's 800,000. And if you're not in a rural high unemployment or infrastructure, then your minimum investment is going to be 1,050,000. 1,050,000. So the delta or the difference between the rural high unemployment and the others is relatively low, only 250,000. But, you know, that's still a lot of money, particularly with the current South African exchange rate. So, look, realistically, I think the business is all going to be within the framework of rural and high unemployment. There is also priority processing for rural cases. We don't exactly know what that means, but Joey, I'm going to turn to you and speculate. What do you think priority processing means for rural? And please help me clarify, is that only for rural or does it also include high unemployment, the so-called priority processing? What do you expect the IPO, which adjudicates those cases, to do with priority processing for rural cases, Joey?
Yeah, the priority processing is only allowed for investments in rural areas, not for investments in high unemployment areas. I would think that they would try to get adjudications done under the priority processing within 180 days. Wow. They indicated in the legislation that they were also supposed to do some studies about increasing the filing fees so that these applications in general can get adjudicated quicker. And one of the processing times that they put as a goal was 180 days. So I'm hopeful that we can start seeing some priority processing in a half a year. I mean, that'd be excellent. It'd be a huge improvement.
But Joey, just being the naysayer, don't they have that in the old legislation, that the intention of Congress is that they should be adjudicating these within 180 days, and that really hasn't happened?
That is what Congress has sort of intended USCIS to do. This is separate. This is saying that they are to implement this priority processing. It is part of the legislative goal of increasing investments in rural areas. The incentive is that if you invest in those areas, you're going to get a quicker adjudication and potentially a quicker visa as well.
Wow, that's incredible. So, Joey, what's the definition of rural?
A rural area is, oh boy, this gets technical.
Okay, I'll do it then. We'll just do a simple one. 20,000 or less outside an MSA. So if it's, Joey's the smart one, honestly, but I know a few things because I'm old. And simple bottom line is that rural definition is a population of under 20,000 and outside of a metropolitan statistical area. So it's a technical definition, but, it also includes projects in Hawaii. There's a lot of rural in Hawaii, which I think is going to be quite popular as well. So bottom line is there's going to be some nice fast track options under this new law, both for the rural and for the concurrent filing. And for people who want to move relatively quickly, that is very, very important. Okay, look, since we're on this issue of the capital investment and the amount, 800,000, Joey, explain for us the law. Let's assume I'm a South African. I've got 500,000 safely and legally taken out, and it's in a U.S. bank account, but I don't have the 800,000. I was hoping to file under the 500,000, but I was one of those drag your feet people, and now I got caught, and the amount's gone up to 800,000. They thought it never would. I knew it would. But I got 500 out. I would still want to do EB-5. I need to get another 300,000 out. What is the law in regard to, and I'll use the legal definition, investing or in the process of, I'm going to try and talk like a South African, by the way, Joey, for this presentation. I'm getting ready. When I go back to America, I have to talk like a South African. Otherwise, they get upset with me. They think I'm being snooty. So tell me... Sorry.
Yeah, the regulations.
What is the regulation about in the process of investing?
Yeah, the regulations allow an investor to be actively in the process of investing and not make the full capital contribution and still be able to file the initial application, the I-526E.
Have we done any like that, Joey, in the past? We have?
Absolutely. And so what ends up happening is you sign an agreement with the project indicating that you have, your intent to remit the balance of that investment amount within a certain amount of time. And then once that money is invested into the project and you have that full 800,000, we submit what we call an interfile to update USCIS that the full investment amount has been invested. And I have done that in the past, and I have gotten approvals. It's written into the regulations. It's the plain language.
But it's still disfavored,
it's definitely an option.
But it's still disfavored. I still don't like it. I know you've done it, and people pushed us on it. Now with the higher amount, we probably have to do it more. Is there a possibility you could be denied? What if the funds are not clearly identified at the time of filing? What if, I'm saying, oh, well, I'm going to get, isn't it very important to have the funds clearly identified? Like, here's the house. It's on the market. I need to sell it. I own the asset. It's fully my asset. Aren't there still issues attached to this, Joey?
Yes, there is, but that's why you work with experienced immigration attorney to make sure that you have some wiggle room. But I agree, it is important to identify potential sources of future investment when you're doing the initial filing, so that you can indicate that you were eligible at the time of filing. I think that's very important.
Yeah.
Stuart, can you jump in here, because I know you've been working on this as well.
I want to jump on here because, in fact, Joey helped me with a couple of filings on this basis back in 2019 when we had that deadline that we were all trying to close as many deals as possible.
Yeah.
But we do have a small offering which will most probably be closed by December, and we are allowing a down payment. with the balance needing to be secured within a relatively short period of time. So we are providing, for a very small few select investors, the opportunity to file with a substantial deposit, and then obviously a lot of scrutinization in terms of the collateral that will be liquidated and make up the balance.
Well, it's good.
I agree with you. It's not our preference.
Yeah.
These files typically will possibly get an RFE. They're not as clean as we want them to be. It doesn't really benefit a project. A project has a specific capital core, and why would they need cash when they're completed? So it's not ideal, but we do have the ability to do it.
But let's call it the exception rather than the rule. At the end of the day, this has to be the exception rather than the rule. RFE, by the way, for those of you not familiar, is a request for evidence. So instead of getting your straight approval, which you're waiting for, you get a request for more evidence. You have to submit more documents, and they sit on it again. So this is not a favorable option. I'm going to advise clients, if you can, please do the full amount of the investment. There are risks associated, but it's good to hear that there are projects and ways to do it if you can identify all of the funds. Folks, I'm not going to get stuck in the weeds today on those points, although I know that's obviously very important for South African investors, possibly for everybody. So what are the advantages of EB-5? Well, look, there's really only 2 or 3 ways to get a green card. You could win the green card lottery. That's not even going to be 1% chance of success. I do encourage everybody to do it if you've got a high school diploma. That's normally in October, November. It's generally free. Do the EB-5 lottery. Who knows? You could get lucky, but I don't plan my life around lotteries. The second one is that, although that'd be a nice retirement thing, maybe I should retire based on that winning lottery ticket I'm going to get. Anyway, so, what else? There's this labor certification process where if you can show there's no Americans who are qualified and you've got an American employer ready to sponsor you, that takes a couple of years. It's got to be genuine. It's quite onerous. We do those as well. But it's got to be a legitimate offer of employment, sponsorship, and then you have to go and work for the employer. Otherwise, you're going to not get your green card. So the nice thing about the EB-5 thing is that there's really no commitment other than you make this investment in the regional center. There's a requirement for some limited involvement in decision making based on the scope of the partnership agreement. They do want you to be involved in some management decisions that is required. So here's the big one, this final point that we're going to talk about. Oh, by the way, of course, you only get a 2-year green card, and then after 2 years, you have to file to remove the conditions. So they give you a 2-year green card, and then before the end of that 2-year, you have to file a separate application to remove the conditions. Those have been pretty slow, quite frankly, and then you can apply for American citizenship. But the bottom line is, and here's the thing that we're going to talk about, the bottom point, concurrent filing. If you are lawfully admitted in the U.S., that is not the ESTA. You cannot come in under the ESTA program, but if you come in on a visa, as most South Africans do, we're going to talk about this concurrent filing of the Form 485, the adjustment of status, and then after a few months, you get employment authorization. After a few months, you get your travel permit as well. But the good news is that the minute you file the 485, the minute you file the adjustment and you get the receipt, the children can go to school. And that includes public school. I always get confused because they call them different words here. Government school. Let's call it government school. Okay, government school. And once you file your 485, you can legally attend a government school. You don't have to go to the private school where you pay the extra money. And boy, those private schools are quite expensive. Bruce spoke about them. By the way, if you can afford a good private school, it may be worth it, quite frankly. I'm not a private school guy. I went to DHS, where they whipped me far too much, but maybe I deserved it in those days. So let's not go down the road of Bernie's damaged high school experience and focus on the important part of Like in our year, high school was quite strict in South Africa. They quite regimented, much more complicated than here in America, where children are. In South Africa, it was the British thing. Children should be seen but not heard. And in America, they're all spoiled. You have to spoil your children if they grow up in America. It's just a different style. But all right, Bernie, stick to your topic.
Okay. Bernie, I think that this to me must be one of the most exciting portions of the new rulemaking. It just is an absolute deal changer.
It is.
I am personally disappointed that we didn't see a premium visa processing or whatever you call it for this.
Yeah.
I think we were all waiting for it. What does your crystal ball say? Do you think that they may bring in premium processing for this portion of it?
I don't think it's going to be premium processing per se. I think it's very similar to what Joey spoke about. I think it's a new concept. And Joey, please butt in and correct me if you think I'm wrong. I think for the rural projects, we're going to see priority processing. We may see additional fees, but I'm going to speculate that on a rural project, we're going to see approvals within 6 months. I really do. They haven't got their act together yet. One of the reasons people are a little bit frustrated is like, okay, so we're starting to get approvals, we're starting to get appointments, everything's moving really nicely. That's great. But at the end of the day, the government's still trying to figure out how to do this new law. They don't really know, okay? So as much as Joey and I have been studying the new law, and now we're doing webinars on the new law, explaining it to everybody, trust me, the government doesn't know the new law. The new law is 100 pages, and they're going to have to, Joey, they're going to have to publish regulations, right? I mean, they're going to have to do some regs on this. The statute is pretty clear, but they haven't really published guidelines. There's no memos, there's no guidance, there's no regulations. So, we're going to wait and see it, but here's the bottom line. I think there's going to be premium processing, and I want to come back to your point, Stuart Ferguson, and that is that this thing is a game changer, and I want to explain how it works, because it's a little bit tricky. Now, one of the first things we can talk about is persons lawfully present in the U.S. That means anybody who came into the U.S. with a visa. Obviously, if you came under, let's suppose you have a British passport and you come in under the ESTA program, or you have an Australian passport, you come under the ESTA program, that person is admitted for 90 days. They cannot do this, okay? So if you come in under the ESTA program or visa waiver program, you cannot do this concurrent filing, okay? Number one. Number two, and this is the most important thing. If you come on a tourist visa with a plan to stay, you can be in serious trouble, okay? So if you arrive at the airport, you say, I heard Bernie Wolfsdorf talking on this webinar about coming in on a tourist visa, and, here I am on my tourist visa. Here's my $800,000 in my suitcase. I'm ready to do the EB-5. You know what's going to happen to you? They'll probably deport you, put you in on a plane and send you straight back home, and they may give you a 5-year bar or maybe even a permanent bar, okay? So you're not allowed to do that. So what's the story then? Well, here's the story. If you come to the United States, let's suppose you come to the United States, you want to meet with Bruce. Bruce is going to help you set up bank accounts and things like that. And Bruce does all of this stuff. And then Bruce says, hey, let's call this guy Bernie. He's a little bit crazy, but let's call him anyway. So they call me and they say, hey, look, we just arrived here. We're 60 days with the family. 60 days is the USCIS rule. 90 days is the State Department rule. So I just stick to the 90 days. So let's assume I get a call. You've been in here for 92 days. And you say, look, I plan to come over on a vacation, but I found out about this concurrent filing thing. And you know what? I haven't quit my job back home. I haven't sold my properties back home. I just came over as a legitimate tourist, and now I want to file for an adjustment. And the amazing thing is, you can do it. You're allowed to do it. In May of 2020, they moved the Chinese cutoff date, and a bunch of my clients came in on tourist visas, and I was really nervous about it. But they were tired of waiting, and they came in, and they contacted me after 90 days, and we filed the adjustment, and here's the good news. Joey, how many of those did we file? It was, I don't know, like...
Hundreds.
I don't know, yeah, but, well, we didn't file hundreds as adjustments, but it was like a couple dozen of them came in. I'm talking about May 2020, when the Chinese visa thing opened up. And we filed a whole bunch of adjustments. And anyway, the good news is they've all been approved.
Yeah, exactly.
They all got approved. So, but you see, because you can actually file off a receipt. Your petition does not have to be approved. That's the key thing. The key thing with this thing is you don't need an approved 526 petition. You merely could do this off a pending. But be careful with this thing, okay? It's very tricky. You're playing with fire here. If you come in with an intention to apply for a green card, it is not allowed. But if you decide to apply for the green card more than 3 months after entry, it is permissible. Permissible. Not encouraged, but permissible. So I don't want to be part of planning you coming in on a tourist visa and then switching over. I'm a lawyer. I cannot be involved in your coming to the U.S. and planning this. But I do explain the law to everybody, which is provided at the time you entered, you had an intention to go back home. And if subsequently circumstances change, let's suppose, hypothetically, you come in and you start doing some scouting, you're checking out houses, you're checking out schools, and the school says, you know what, there's a slot available. Your child can start now. And you say, wait a second, I was planning to go back and finish high school in South Africa, but they have a slot open at this private school. My daughter went to this private school called Harvard Westlake. It's like the top one. It's impossible to get into. She's got her mother's brain, so that's how she got in. Not mine, clearly. And she got into this private school. I mean, it's like such a big deal. You have no idea. And, if something like that happened, then maybe that's a change of circumstance. And you would decide, look, I got into this very special private school, so we decided to stay. And at that point, you can file the adjustment. And you can even... Sorry, Joe?
Yeah, Joe?
Yeah, let me just say a couple of things, if you don't mind. Just when you file your adjustment, you have the right to be in the United States until they make a decision on your adjustment. That is the big key. And you can file your adjustment now at the same time or shortly after filing the I-526. So this, like Stuart mentioned at the beginning of the slide, is a huge change, because if you're outside of the United States, you have to wait for your I-526 to be approved to go to the U.S. consulate and get a visa put in your passport. This speeds up that process and allows you and your family to be in the United States and not accrue any unlawful presence at a much earlier time.
Thank you for being so eloquent.
Yeah,
Joey.
and sorry, let me just say one other thing, because this is answering one of the questions that I said we'd answer live, is when you file your adjustment of status application, you also file for an employment authorization document or a travel document. But you can't work in the United States until you get that EAD if you enter on a tourist visa. So there is a period of time where you're allowed to be here, but you're not necessarily allowed to work based on that adjustment filing.
How long are the EADs
so one of the questions,
taking,
Bernie...
How long are the EADs taking still, Joey?
These days...
less than 6 months?
Yeah, the trend is less. I saw on a listserv actually earlier this week that someone got one approved in 30 days. So,
yes.
Yeah,
so that's very important, because they had been taking many, many months, but they are now getting much faster. I don't want to promise anybody 30 days. I like to still say, look, it's a few months, because it was terrible, but they've apparently fixed their work permit machine or developed some new way to process these. And yeah, wow, I hadn't heard about the 30 days. I still have been telling people 60 to 90 days, but that's a very good trend.
Bernie, I just wanted to raise one point. Is I think that with this new ability to do status of adjustment, when you are engaging with a potential investor who would like to go forward and may actually want to take advantage of this adjustment of status ability, then possibly it's very crucial for us to look at the family unit.
Absolutely.
In most cases, it would most probably be better for the wife to be the primary applicant, because she most probably would like to have the kids enrolled, get them enrolled in school, maybe fly back home a couple of times, and then re-enter, and at that point say, listen, I now need to be more permanently closer to my kids who are enrolled in school or in high school or in university, and I'm going to apply for the status of adjustment.
Look, Stuart, I think we have to take those case by case and examine them. During this trip that we're going to do, I think we really have to sit down and look at each case specifically. I'm going to start off by telling you that my preference is going to be to keep the family together, to do it in one unit, okay? That is my strong preference. But I do understand that situation. We've had that with a lot of Chinese applicants where the wife and kids will come over first. And, you can even mix and match, believe it or not, but you can have a situation where the wife and kids could process their green card in the U.S., and then the husband could do a following to join petition separately through the consulate. So here we would do both. And we've done this on many cases where the wife will come over with the kids, put them in school, and do this AOS adjustment. And then once it gets approved, like maybe 2 or 3 years later, the husband would then come in and do the visa through the consulate. So we'll talk about all these mix and match complications. But this is, as you said, it's a game changer for people, because in the old days they had to wait in South Africa for 3 years. I used to tell people 2 years, then I have to move it to 3 years. Now with the delay, it's even more. But now, under this new system, realistically, people could come over and, within 2 to 3 months. And I'd like to say probably 3 to 4 months, if they qualify, and they can get over this issue of what I call preconceived intent. You cannot come on a tourist visa. If you're here on a student visa, it's much more. It's much easier. There is a visa called the company transfer visa, the L1. Now, there's one really nice thing about the L1. The L1 is a dual intent visa, and I'm going to talk about this specifically in certain situations. Let's assume, and just picking up on Stuart's point, let's assume that you have a business in South Africa. And let's assume that you want to open a new branch office under the new office. Generally speaking, the L1, I tell people, if you have a small company, and I'm talking about the U.S. company, if the U.S. company is going to be a small company with 1 or 2 employees, it's a problem because it's very hard to get the extension. So the cleanest way to do concurrent filing is to open a new office L1, get a non-immigrant visa. This is a 1-year work visa. It is relatively easy to get a new office L1. It's not easy, it's relatively easy. You do need a business plan. You do need an office. You do need to be adequately capitalized, but you can file those things premium processing, so they get approved in about 2 weeks. So if you come over on a L1, a 1-year L1, unless you have at least 8 to 10 employees, you may not be able to get an extension on that L1. But my gosh, you can then go ahead and file the EB-5, listen to this, on day 1 of arrival. So if you come into the US on a 1-year L1 visa, I can legally file an adjustment of status for you and your entire family on day 1. And here's the beautiful part about it. You authorized to work. The L2 spouse is authorized to work. That's a new thing. Automatically, without anything. And you are automatically authorized to travel. So look, what Stuart mentioned about the adjustment of status being a game changer. This is a game changer with a limo because there is no risk. No risk of entering on a tourist visa. Oh, I came on holiday and my kid got accepted into school, so I changed my mind after 90 days. Under this one, on day one, you arrive on a new office L1 with you and your family. I filed for an adjustment, and Stuart, I might even follow your advice. Have the wife be the primary applicant. Because it doesn't matter. She might be the L2. She could be the primary applicant. And the husband can go back and the wife can stay here. So the L1 is a dual intent visa. It is the best way to do this. It is the legal way to do this. And here's something kind of interesting. I mentioned in the previous slide there's something called 245K. Somebody asked me, what's 245K? Hell, this is good. Shouldn't use the adjective hell, but the bottom line is we love 245K. 245K says if your visa is expired by 180 days, up to 180 days, up to and including 180 days. So let's assume you came in on this L1 and you couldn't get an extension because the business is not doing well. And your L1's actually denied. Your L1's been denied. You are now out of status for 179 days. Miraculously, you win the green card lottery. You got $800,000. You invested into a project. Bingo, you're home and safe. Under 245K, you can actually be out of status. The other word for that is illegal. Out of status, no status, for 180 days after your L1's expired or even after your tourist visa's expired, and still file for an adjustment. So the government, it seems to be favoring this way of applying. They've moved. In the old days, most of my EB-5 clients would process through Johannesburg or through the consulate abroad, and now the government seems to be favoring this adjustment of status where you do it in the US. So this requires a lot of planning. You can only do this day one thing off an H-1B. It's a dual intent visa, or an L1. You could technically do it off other visas like the O1, the extraordinary ability visa, the student visa. But for the student visa, I would strongly recommend the 90 days because it's not a dual intent visa. So, Joey, do you have any more comments on this issue? What is your experience with new office L1s, Joey? I know you filed quite a few of them. Let's explain to the audience about new office Ls.
A new office L is when you're starting a new branch in the United States, and there is some sort of qualifying corporate relationship with a entity abroad. So if you're the owner of a South African company and you're in an executive and a managerial role, and now you're going to be opening up a new company in the United States, and you'll be in an executive and managerial role, that's how you qualify for the L1.
And how long does it take you to get an approval on premium processing?
Yeah, you get a decision within 15 days. We have been able to do this. In the past, we've been, I think, a little reluctant to do L1 new office for smaller companies because it's difficult to get extensions. But with this concurrent filing is that if you're coming in and know that you're going to be doing EB-5, you don't have to worry about filing that new that extension on the L, because you're going to be filing your adjustment of status and having the ability to be here without that L moving forward. I will say one question, Bernie, that I think is really good and would like to get your thoughts is, what about existing EB-5 applicants? They have an I-526 pending. Can they now do the L1 and then come in?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Existing cases, absolutely. So if you are tired of waiting and you decide you want to come in on an L1 and file for an adjustment and do your case from here, I don't care that the case was filed a year ago, 6 months ago. You absolutely can do this for existing clients and do an L1. We had been, one or two of my clients who had been speaking about it. I was very uncomfortable with doing the new office L1 previously because I've seen so many South Africans over the year come in on an L1, not be able to extend, get frustrated, and have to go home. Okay? But if they now have the ability to file an adjustment under the EB-5 program of a pending 526, repeat, pending, not approved, they can do it. So look, we've done it off a tourist visa. We've had situations, that's what I was talking about with the Chinese cases in May 2020, where people with pending cases came in on a tourist visa and we filed adjustment, but that made me nervous, okay, because it could go either way. If you come in on an L1, it's much better, but we'll discuss all these options with people who have pending cases during my upcoming trip. I'm leaving for Cape Town on the 10th. It's actually my sister's big birthday, so I have to come in for that. And then we're going to be in Durban. So Cape Town from the 10th to the 13th, Durban from the 13th to the 17th, and then Joburg for the final leg. I think, Stuart, you're taking care of those plans,
correct.
Right?
Yeah, correct. So we are obviously going to be reaching out to everybody, and Rob will be coordinating specific time slots. And then obviously firming up on where we're going to be. But yeah, I mean, we really would encourage people to come through, have a cup of coffee. It's a combination of existing investors who are wanting to possibly get a greater understanding of the adjustment of status and maybe combining it with an L1. And then obviously we've got a couple of new prospects, which we're going to be, obviously introducing Bernie and to, and we're really looking forward to a trip out here, Bernie. It's been a while.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited. It's like going home. I'm sure you all feel that when you go back home. Home now is Los Angeles. I love LA, but I'm a Durban boy, and I get very excited when I go back home. The food is always wonderful, although that's a little problem for me at this stage of my life. The good food. And you said, come and have a coffee. The funny thing is, I stopped drinking coffee. I'm back to tea now, Stuart. So come and have a cup of tea with us and some Mari biscuits and my favorites. And, we'd love to meet with you all, talk about what the new options are under this new law. We talk about comprehensive immigration strategy. We look at all the different options that are available for you. Oh, that's, you were talking about credibility. That's me, although a couple of years ago, managing partner of WR, certified state bar specialist, voted the greatest and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, I've been doing this stuff for a long time, and global elite thought leader. Gosh, I got to send this to my wife and see if I can get some respect at home. I don't think it's going to work, but, whatever. They give you all these awards. And this is our full team. There's Joey, my partner, Vivian. Vivian's a top EB-5 magazine, top 25. Joey just got Rising Star. I think they're going to give you top 25 this year, Joey. You're the risen star. I think, but they haven't sent that out yet. And then there's my partner, Avi Friedman. He's been with me so long. I don't know how he puts up with me for all these many years, over 20 years. And then David Fulmer as well. These are four of my partners, all involved in this. What is this? Some articles we've done. There's a list of all our different offices. We have office in Boston, Los Angeles, Woodland Hills, New York, Oakland, San Diego. The San Diego office is a new office. Lots of South Africans in San Diego. San Francisco office, Santa Monica office, that's where I am. We have a China office, very small, and then we do our global. Global is outbound immigration. So we actually, if you need a visa for Portugal, strangely enough, we actually do that as well, but that's not today's topic. You can get me at visalaw@wolfsdorf.com, Bernard at Wolfsdorf. There's Joey Barnett. Joey, have we answered all the questions? I really like to make sure we've answered all.
Yeah, I'm trying to, few people have asked about gut feelings for processing times. I think we've kind of gone over that.
Yes.
They were asking about timelines.
But just remember, the whole thing about processing times is if you're doing the adjustment of status, that's irrelevant, okay? Because if it takes 2 years, who cares? Because you're in the US with your work permit and travel permit. So, so that's a very good question. Processing times for existing 526s. Look, these things are taking 3 years or more. The ones that have already been filed. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible. The financing options, we'll go into those. I think we've covered pretty much all of the topics for today. But we do encourage you to reach out. And we'd love to meet with you in person, go through all the specifics of your case. I'm going to be out in South Africa for 10 days. And wow, you've answered 25 questions. That's a lot, Joey. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Joey is so efficient. I do all the talking. He does all the work. So look, we're pretty much done. Bruce, Dr. Bruce Stewart, I haven't given you much time to talk. I'd like to give you a closing opportunity to just explain. Can we please have contact with Dr. Bruce? I will go back to that slide. Bruce, just shoot out your contact info again, please.
Yeah, it's pathwayusa.coza, pathwayusa.co.za.
And if we want to email you, info at
pathwayusa.co.za.
Got it. Thank you so much.
That's the easiest way of getting hold of us in terms of bank accounts, buying investment properties, building credit score, talking schools, education, health insurance. Bernie, I wanted to add one comment when you were talking about doing this adjustment of status with getting an advanced parole document.
Yes.
We were in process for getting our 485s approved, and we got an advanced parole document. I was advised by my attorney not to travel on an advanced parole document. I disobeyed him because I had to go overseas. But when I came back, I got detained at Charlotte Douglas Airport for about 4 hours because there was nobody at immigration who had the foggiest idea of what an advanced parole document. They thought it was something that felons get. And so they kept me locked up for a long time.
No, but Bruce, that's because, you've got that twinkle in your eye that makes them nervous. Let me tell you, advanced parole is just a routine travel document. You must have bumped into what we call in South Africa a DUS. Because honestly, you bumped into a DUS. Yes, it is true that with advanced parole, you will normally go into secondary. I think you were unlucky. I am exactly the opposite of your lawyer. Your lawyer gave you bad advice, in my opinion, because I am 100% clear that if you have an advanced parole, you can travel on. It's absolutely not an issue. Yes, it could be that you would be held up for an hour or two upon arrival because they want to double check and make sure that it's legitimate, et cetera, et cetera. The fact that you were held up for 4 or 5 hours is an aberration. As I say, it's that crazy twinkle you've got when you're upset with me, Bruce. But generally speaking, my thing is advanced parole, no problem. But what I have explained here today, very, very clearly, is that it's so much better to do this off a L1 than use the advanced parole as a travel. Okay. So, but I'm still not buying your thing. Your lawyer advising you, the only circumstance where you do not travel on an advanced parole is if you've been illegal for more than 180 days. Then there's a question of, have you accrued unlawful presence and blah, blah, blah. So if you've been out of status, to my knowledge, Bruce, you were not illegal. I hope you were not illegal or out of status or working without permission. If you are messy and you've got issues, that's true. Then I will tell people, please do not use your advanced parole. Anyway, folks, I think 1 or 2 people have said, and Sean, how's it? I hope I'm going to see you when we're in Joburg. You asked, are we going to record this and distribute it? The answer is absolutely yes. This is being recorded. Hopefully they get rid of all my silly comments in the cleanup, but we will be sending this out to everybody. Share it with your friends. Come and see us in Joburg. No coffee, but you're going to get a cup of tea maybe. If you're lucky, you'll get a cup of tea from me and maybe 2 Maury biscuits. That's the limit. But aside from being silly, thank you very, very much. How long are consulate interviews taking in Joburg? Look, for newly filed cases, I'm going to say anticipate about 2.5 years. I know some of you have been waiting longer, but if you file the adjustment, then it's going to be a whole lot faster. Joey's got rid of all the questions, so I can't keep answering them. Thank you very, very much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Stuart from American Dream. Thank you to Bruce from Pathways, helping people navigate some of the complex aspects of immigration. Stuart, a veteran at this business, advising South Africans, doing due diligence on projects, working with Pam Golding, checking out what works for South Africans. Thank you, Stuart, for the work that you do. And we are what I call the Visa Boys. Actually, Visa Boys and Girls, because Vivian is also a critical part of our team. Joey is what I call the smart one, the one with the brains, who gets it through all the tricky little areas of EB-5. Thank you, Joey, for all your great work. Joey even sets up regional centers. Joey is like so busy setting up new regional centers. He's the guru. Everybody turns to him as the source of all wisdom. And, me, Bernie Wolfsdorf, what can I say? Just one of the Okies from Durban. Welcome to help you. Look forward to the trip. Thank you, Stuart Ferguson, for all your work in putting this together. And we've been going for over an hour. So this is enough to give everybody a headache. So on that cheery note, thank you, everybody. Look forward to meeting with you. And come on, we'll meet you all in America. We'll see you in Los Angeles very soon, I hope. So on that cheery note, James, let's pull the plug. This is the end. And we appreciate your participation today. Good night, everybody. And see you soon, I hope.